Hey, I'm Brian.
And I'm Molly. We're the Wallens.
We're musicians who travel the world together, and we sleep in our van.
In other words, life is normal.
The rain is falling softly on the ground, and the lights are on. This week is all about castles and abbeys. Scotland is home to some truly amazing historic sites, and we took advantage of the opportunity to visit a number of them. After leaving our favorite town, Cromarty, we headed over to a 12th century relic, Duffus Castle. Free to visit, we enjoyed walking up the beautiful green hill to explore the remains of this fortress residence. As an added bonus, an RAF base is located just a few miles away, so we were treated to a flyover by a squadron of Eurofighter Typhoon jets. From there, we headed south to the Malt Whiskey Trail. There are many distilleries in this part of Scotland, but we decided to make a stop at one of the best known, Glenlivet. Located out in the countryside, we enjoyed what was essentially a private tour of the facility. It only cost £10 per person, and we each got 3 drams of scotch and a tasting glass to take home. Well worth a visit. From there, we headed through a truly otherworldly landscape, Cairngorms National Park. The sun was going down, and it created an ethereal atmosphere as we wound our way through one of the most spectacular roads I've ever driven. I only wish we had the driving footage from our stolen GoPro to show you. After an overnight stay in the town of Kirriemuir, we were headed south to the big town of Edinburgh. I can't tell you how much we enjoyed this artsy city of hills. Getting around is so easy and convenient. Our first day we headed to a park and ride station, paid a few pounds for a day pass, and caught the tram into the city center. Our first stop was the Edinburgh Castle, with its sweeping panoramic views. We enjoyed visiting St. Margaret's Chapel, the oldest building in Edinburgh, and the Scottish National War Memorial, a fitting and chilling tribute to all those lost in conflict over the years. This was again an emotional moment for Molly, as there were lots of Nimos listed among the names of those killed in action. After the castle, we walked down to the Royal Mile, and we found our favorite tea room of the trip, the Milkman. We enjoyed a spot of tea, and then we headed to our Airbnb. After checking in, we simply walked to the corner, hopped on a double-decker city bus, and headed to dinner at a delightful place called the Wee Buddha. It was one of our favorite meals of the trip. Having seen a lot of Edinburgh that afternoon and evening, we decided to spend the next couple of days exploring some of the historic abbeys just south of the city. Our first stop was the Melrose Abbey, founded in 1136 by Cistercian monks. This is the final resting place for many Scottish kings and nobles, and it is also the burial place of Robert the Bruce's heart. After exploring the stunning architecture, we stopped for tea and soup before continuing to the Dryburgh Abbey. The first Christian worship at Dryburgh may have taken place as early as 650 A.D. The abbey was originally built on this site in the 1100s, but was mostly destroyed in a series of wars and conflicts. Sir Walter Scott, the esteemed novelist and poet, chose the abbey as his final resting place because of its beauty and atmosphere. The abbey is also home to one of Scotland's oldest trees, a yew tree, dating back to 1136. It's on the 100 Heritage Trees of Scotland list. Not to be content with just 2, we also had to swing by the Jedburgh Abbey, an Augustinian abbey that also dates back to the 12th century. During the Protestant Reformation, the monks were forced to convert, but were allowed to stay in the abbey. It was used as a place of worship until 1871. After a full day, we were hungry, So we dipped down into England for a bite in Berwick. With beautiful views of the North Sea, it was the perfect place for dinner. We had a ridiculous meal at Lock, Stock and Burgers. It was one of the best burgers I've had anywhere. And for our last day in the Edinburgh area, we headed out for a walk through the park, enjoying the beautiful fall colors and scenery at Lauriston Castle. We took a trip to Queensferry, enjoying great views of an engineering marvel, the Forth Bridge. Surprise, surprise, we stopped for tea and cake at the Honeypot Creative Cafe, located under the rail bridge. It was a relaxing afternoon. For our last day of this part of the trip, we headed over to Glasgow. It's a bit more of a typical big city than Edinburgh, but it was still a lovely experience. We stayed right in the center of town at our only hotel of the trip. The Premier Inn was in a perfect location, had a great view from the room, and it was around the corner from a delightful Indian restaurant called Kulba. Did you know that curry is one of the most popular foods in the UK and Ireland? You even get it with your fish and chips. I have to admit, we were very sad to leave Scotland. We easily could have spent our entire trip exploring this jewel of a country. What's interesting to me is that you often hear people talk extensively about their desire to visit Ireland or England, but Scotland usually seems to be an afterthought. And admittedly, it almost was for us, too. We decided to go there for the first part of our honeymoon on a whim. And I'm so glad we did. The character, culture, and scenery will stay in our hearts for a long, long time. It's such an authentic place, and our time spent there represents everything we love about traveling. Next week, we'll visit Ireland. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.